What's up, guys? Back with another episode. This time we're gonna be finishing Calafate. That last video was a really long video about Alejandro and his baptism and just the immense spirit that was there. And so I felt the need to touch on and talk about that for a long time in that video. Due to that, it ended up being a little bit longer than I thought. So this is gonna be the episode where I finish out my time in Calafate. So here's some more pictures of Alejandro before he got baptized. Me and all my white there. There's Alejandro, and then there's Elder Peterson. And I would just want to shout out. I wish Elder Whiting could have been here in this experience because Elder Whiting did a majority of the teaching, and he did such a good job with Alejandro. But he'd been transferred to northern Argentina. He got transferred to Trelew, which is about 20 hours from Calafate, so he didn't get to be there to experience Alejandro's baptism. But I believe, or I remember Elder Whiting got a call him on the day of the baptism, which was really special, really cool. So there's that picture from that. Here was a picture from, I believe, our zone conference. Was Elder Peterson and I. That was pretty cool there. Oh, that's what that picture was from. It wasn't from zone conference. It was from Christmas. So in the mission, Christmas is kind of a crazy time because you're not with your family, and Christmas is celebrated worldwide, and it's pretty important worldwide. And so we, as a mission in Argentina, they celebrate Christmas just like we celebrate New Year's here in the U.S. It's not really like getting presents and all that. It is very family oriented, but a lot of times they shoot off fireworks and they stay up till midnight, and that's the big thing is they stay up till midnight. It's really exciting for them for that reason. So what we did on the night before Christmas, we were pretty lucky. Our Christmas party was prior to Christmas, in the Rio Gallegos zone. So what we ended up doing was we all got together as a zone. So they pulled all of the missionaries from the outlying areas, Calafate, 28 de Noviembre, and Rio Turbio, which were three areas like Calafate. They pulled all of us together, and we had this big Christmas feast, huge Christmas feast, an asado, all you can eat. And then we had acts and skits, and then we sat on Santa's lap, which was just one of the assistants in a Santa suit. And it was really cool. As you can see here, they've got these like little card things that we're all holding, and these were the entire mission. Every missionary in the mission got their picture in this, where they're from, and yeah, it was really cool. I'm right here, but they gave us that, and then they gave us a mug that you can see here also, and some like hot chocolate mix or something like that. It was pretty cool. Um, but it was really cool. We ended up staying at the church building until super late, and then I remember they wouldn't let us walk back to the apartments, which was probably a good thing. The walk back to the apartments was probably going to be about 35 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and so they sent us all home at about midnight in remises, which are taxis. And I remember like being just like in awe. It was such a fun experience, and that it was just so much fun. One story that I did remember, that this is prior to the Christmas, but um, when all the missionaries, when we go through transfers, my mission was so big that transfers took generally about 2 weeks to complete, which was crazy when you think about the amount of time that ended up getting lost just to travel in my mission because it was so huge. Um, Due to that, they at the time of the transfers between my trainer leaving and me getting Elder Peterson as a companion. So at the beginning of this transfer, because I was only with Elder Peterson for one transfer, sadly, because I really liked Elder Peterson. Um, we at the beginning of that transfer, when you were in Rio or Calafate, because there were no other elders in Calafate, generally the two missionaries came to Rio Gallegos, and whoever stayed with the zone leaders until their companion arrived. Well, what happened is there was a strike in Argentina, a bus strike, where they shut down all the busing routes. They shut down everything because the busing companies wanted to get paid more. The employees wanted to get paid more. And so I ended up staying with Elder Ovia. Elder Febo went home. He'd finished his mission and he had gone home. Um, oh wait, was it Elder Febo? Yeah, Elder Febo was going home. I'm trying to remember how this story exactly worked. It was something like that. Elder Febo was going home. I was getting Elder Peterson as a companion. Huh. That's not right. Just kidding. I remember the correct story now. So what had happened is I got sent with Elder Febo and Elder Oviat to be in a companionship with them, and Elder Febo actually had to go stay with one of the elders in another area called San Benito. Um, and so that's what ended up happening there. Had my story twisted a little bit there. Um, but what happened was I had to stay with Elder Oviat in the zone leader's apartment. Elder Febo went and stayed with Elder Oviat's companion went and stayed with somebody else. So we all had companions, and they shut down all the buses. So Elder Peterson couldn't get there, and we couldn't get back to Calafate, and that was for about a week. We had elders. We were rotating the elders in and out because I was kind of with the zone leaders all the time because my companion wasn't there and I wasn't in my area, and so we were waiting for Elder Barrientos, which is here. We're waiting for his companion to get there. And then we were also waiting for, I don't know if he's in this picture. I think he'd gone home at the time. There was Elder Torres was his name. Elder Torres was also staying with us, another really fun elder from California. But we were all in this apartment. And I think I'd kind of talked about this story in a previous episode, but we were all stuck in this apartment. And then there was like wind warnings, so we weren't allowed to go outside. It was just kind of a crazy time. And so what we did is we set up mattresses throughout this entire house because the zone leader's apartment was a big house. And so we set up mattresses throughout the house, and they had about 3 foot long PVC pipes, and they had hundreds of Nerf darts. And so what we did is we would have Nerf wars during the day because we're stuck in this apartment. We weren't allowed to leave. And to keep ourselves interested, because we don't have phones, we don't have TVs, none of this stuff, we would play Nerf wars for hours. And so we were like running through this house, shooting Nerf darts at each other, hiding behind mattresses. It was so much fun. And it was just a really, really good time. Very, very memorable experience. And I remember there was probably 4 or 5 of us missionaries, and we would all pile into one little tiny bedroom at night. And Elder Oviat was in the bedroom, and Elder Febo was in the bedroom. And I was between the two of them, and then um, it was Elder, I think it was Barrientos, and it was Elder, the one I just talked about. Goodness sakes. Anyways, they were all there. They ended up having the elder that went home. How am I forgetting his name? I just was Elder Torres. There we go. Sorry about that. Elder Torres ended up getting really sick one night, and they had to take him to the emergency room. And so I stayed there with Elder Febo, Elder Oviat, and Elder Torres all went to the hospital, and I stayed. It was Elder Lloyd that was staying with us because he was getting a new companion. So we all were just sitting there, and it was just a crazy experience. It's just how quickly everything changed. So anyways, they went to the hospital after we gave them a blessing and everything, and crazy experience. The next day, they had to send Elder Torres home because he got really sick. And so the next day, they actually sent me with Elder Barrientos here from Peru. And I remember I got sent to this little teeny tiny apartment in Rio Gallegos, in Gaucho Rivero was the area. And I remember just like falling in love with Rio Gallegos in southern Argentina when I was with Elder Barrientos, because it was just such a different world down there. I mean, streets weren't paved. Gaucho was just like a very like run down area, and it was just, to me, it was beautiful. I loved the just the culture of Argentina, but I also loved the landscape and how different. Here in the U.S., everything's very cookie cutter, very clean. There, it's just the trash is strewn in the streets, and it sounds funny to love, but genuinely, I loved that. There's hundreds of dogs in the street, stray dogs everywhere. I loved that. I loved playing with those dogs and having fun with those dogs because they were so fun to tease and play with, because most of the time they were very kind because they were very adapted to people. But that was one of the first experiences where I realized, like, I can speak a little bit of Spanish, I can teach lessons, I can have fun with the Latino missionaries, I can just get around. And again, my Spanish wasn't good at that time, but it was enough to be able to be in an apartment with 3 missionaries from, there was Elder Orshana, Elder Barrientos and Elder Salinas, who ended up being my companion on later down the road. And we all just had a lot of fun, and that was when I really realized, like, oh, I could hold my own in Argentina if I needed to, and I loved it. That just it made my life. Anyways, that was at the beginning of this transfer here prior to Christmas, but it was just a story I remembered and I loved, and I know I need to share it before I forget to share it in the series. Anyways, we had Christmas. There's me sitting on the lap of Elder Jimenez with Elder Popa, getting my Christmas card and my package here, as you can see. And then this was right after we got back to from Christmas. We went back to Calafate after our whole Christmas thing, and we got to this was right at the end of transfer number 3 in my mission. So we're coming to an end, and we're at Sister Lago's house, Vivian's house. This giant plate of food is funny. I sent this picture home, and my mom was so excited. Little did she know this was just all the scrap food that we ended up feeding to the dogs. I don't think I've ever told her that in this picture, but Vivian did serve us big food like this. This was all milanesas, like steak milanesas that she'd made for us, and rice. And she made these. Oh, it was so good. It was like rice, and then they cut up lettuce, and they drizzle olive oil over it, and salt, and with tomatoes and onions. Oh, it was so good. Anyways, that was just all the scraps that we ended up feeding to the dogs. Never told my mom that, so she's probably watching this mad at me now that I never said that, because I sent her this picture. Anyways, that's funny. And then this was I think this was like 2 days before transfers. We went on our P day, and we cut Sister Lago's grass, Vivian's grass, and we helped her with her house and everything like that, because she had to take care of it because she was renting it. And again, little teeny tiny house, just her. She was working, has 5 daughters, and so it was she needed help, and so that's what we did. We went and helped her. I remember being super excited because she would message my mom and then show me the text, and I would get so excited to just see a message from home, a message from my mom. And I loved it because Vivian would always send pictures of me home too, and I know my mom loved that during my mission. So Elder Peterson and I had a really good time, lots of fun. The other thing that I haven't mentioned, but at the very beginning of this transfer with Elder Peterson, when I had to go stay with Elder Oviat and Elder Febo with the zone leaders when I was waiting for Elder Peterson, they taught me Magic the Gathering, the card game. Elder Febo played in high school, and he taught Elder Oviat. And Elder Oviat was really, really cool guy. Was very, very cool in high school kind of thing. And I remember my cousin Ian playing Magic the Gathering, and I thought it was super cool, but I just never figured it would be a game for me. And so Elder Oviat, one night, we got back to the apartment after a long day of teaching and everything, and he goes, "Hey, let's play Magic." And I was like, "Heck no, I'm not playing Magic. Like, it's not a cool game." And he's like, "Trust me, you'll like it." I remember I played one game and I was hooked. I lost the game, but I was like, this is so much fun. This is something to do on my mission. And so a lot of the days where Elder Peterson and I weren't allowed to go out because of wind warnings, that's what we would sit in our apartment and do. And I think later in this week, we ended up sitting and playing Magic because I got some Magic cards down there, and we'd play. Little did I know we played completely wrong until I got home and I actually played the game with my cousin. And I was like, oh, I've been playing this game pretty much wrong for part of my mission, so that's funny. But it was that was crazy. One other thing I remembered, side story, completely off topic here. Something I remembered from Rio Gallegos and my time with Elder Oviat is we were teaching this guy, and he was super cool. His mom had been a recent convert, and we we're teaching her son, and he was just so kind, and he loved to give the elder something to remember him by. And I remember we went into his house. I wasn't in that area. I just was teaching him. And he's like, "New elder, I've got something for you." And he like runs to his room and comes back. And he was about like 23, 25 years old. So he had already lived away from home and everything. Comes back and he gives me a freaking ninja star. And I thought that thing was so cool. I still have it to this day. So many missionaries wanted it. But that was like a prized possession from this guy. I don't remember his name, sadly. But I just remember getting a ninja star from somebody we were teaching in the mission. I thought that was so cool. So here's the end of my time in Calafate. So I went from Calafate. I received a call. Transfer calls happened. And so I was sitting there with Sister Coombs had already left at this point because she was going home. She'd finished her mission out. So Sister Coombs was finishing her mission. So she'd left. And Sister Blasio had one of the sister training leaders staying in Calafate with us to do some work, and we were sitting at Greedo's ice cream. That was just kind of a tradition to always sit at Greedo's and eat ice cream and wait for transfer calls, at least in Calafate. And so we were sitting in Greedo's waiting for transfer calls, and our phones ring, and we put our phones on speakers, set them on the table, and we're listening. And I figured I was probably gonna stay because I'm like, oh, I've been in Calafate for 3 transfers, been with Elder Peterson for 1. I probably could do 1 more here, 1 more with Peterson, and then get transferred. And I remember they said, all right, El Calafate, that was my area. Elder Passy, you have been called to serve in Gaiman in the Trelew district. And Elder Peterson, your new companion, will be Elder Taylor. And I just remember being sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm leaving Calafate. Like, this feels like my home. Like, it was so hard. It was such an experience. And I just literally remember sitting at this table and remember having like flashbacks of like all the times we had to go to the bus station and the pharmacy because I was sick at the beginning of my mission all the time with all sorts of stomach bugs, and the time that I got fed dog meat because the local butcher was killing dogs and giving out dog meat, and all these things just went through my head. And I just remember being like so excited and so scared at the same time, like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my comfort zone. I'm so comfortable here. And I remember being so sad and crying when I had to say goodbye to Vivian and her daughters and Alejandro and his family, because I personally just build really strong connections with people, and it's super hard for me to break those connections or to have to move on. It's really hard for me. And later in my mission, I learned that I was very blessed. I was known as the missionary that never left, because I would go to an area and I'd be in an area for a very long time. So anyways, I got called to Gaiman, and I just was in awe. It was crazy. I didn't know what to think, and I was scared. But it was a great call. And it was kind of a crazy experience because here's my mom posted this pictures of the difference in temperature. It was quite dramatic difference in temperature. But I was called the Gaiman with Elder Atoni, and Elder Atoni was from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and so he didn't speak. He was just about the same. He had 3 weeks more time in the mission than I did, and so he didn't speak English. Spoke a little bit of Spanish, but he's from Brazil, so he really spoke Portuguese. And I'm from the U.S., so I speak English. I don't speak Spanish, and I definitely don't speak Portuguese. So that was the biggest fear for me. And I remember literally getting sick to my stomach over this. And it became a kind of trend in my mission where I would get very stressed before transfers, and I would end up throwing up most of the time right before transfers because I got so anxious, so scared. I didn't know what to do. And so a lot of times it came out in sickness in me because I'd get so anxious. But that was that. Anyways, we moved on, and I packed up, got on a bus, and I went to Trelew. And I remember getting off the bus in Trelew, and the zone leaders were there waiting for me. And Elder Tony got off a bus about an hour later. We waited at the bus station for about an hour. Elder Tony gets off a bus, and they're like, all right, let's go. And so we all hop on a bus, and we drove 45 minutes out into the countryside. And I just remember thinking, like, when is this bus ride going to end? And we stopped in this town. And Trelew is a very yellow, like brown country. It's very, very kind of ugly. A lot like Arizona, just very brown and yellow. And that was where I spent the next 2.5 weeks. I only spent 2.5 weeks in Gaiman and Trelew. And that will be for the next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Sorry it wasn't as filled with the spirit as the last episode was, but it was kind of a mush of all my stories from Rio Gallegos. And this next episode is probably going to be very choppy and cut up as well because of my time in Trelew was cut pretty short. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next episode.